Hey everyone, in this video I am freaking excited. Guys, I have been waiting 2 years plus for this to come about. This is Army Painter's new speed paint range, their answer to contrast paints, and I could not be more excited right now. Honestly, this has been coming for so long. So let me talk a little bit about the paints. Guys, I'm too excited to go and put some paints on some miniatures. That's what I want to be doing, and I'll be doing that as fast as I can, but I want to just cover my initial thoughts. This is all that's arrived today. I've only got 3 paints, but I was pretty excited when I saw it was from Army Painter, and I thought it was going to be speed paint, and it doesn't matter that there's only 3. I'm sure I'll get the full range eventually, but at least we can get our first hands on it, see what this is like, and find out a little bit more about it. Guys, if you don't know about the Army Painter, maybe you know them as a company, they revolve around painting armies, hence the name, but also doing them fast, giving gamers more time back by getting paint on miniatures, getting it on quickly, giving them more time to play the actual games that they're painting for. So they're essentially going back to their roots. I'm pretty sure the company started with that quick shade wash, that dunk and dip method where you could just shade your miniature with one quick dunk. Again, you know, love it or hate it, it is fast, and there's no denying that. And you know, they've gone through color primers, allowing us to prime a miniature and get some of that base coat done for free just in the priming process. They've done their quick shades where they've got their washes which help add depth to miniatures very quickly. Then they went to the airbrush range, which is again another means of them painting, or us painting miniatures very quickly. And now we've gone all the way to this single one quick coat speed paint range that they're about to launch and bring out. Essentially, Army Painter are now trying to be more accessible to brand new painters. We are in an overwhelming hobby, guys, and there's plenty of people out there who do not know where to start. This kind of paint range does allow beginners just a very simple, just pick up this range and you're done. You don't need to get washes, you don't need to get layer paints, you don't need to worry about lots and lots of techniques. You'll be able to paint miniatures just getting this range and dunk your brush in and slap it on the miniature, and it's going to have color, shade, and some highlighting done for you. On top of new painters, though, you're going to appeal to painters like myself. I am an experienced painter now, but I am lazy as they come, and I do not like spending huge amounts of time painting my miniatures. I'm a gamer at heart. I want to go and play the games. Painting them is just to increase my experience in the gaming environment. Now, that is not to say that it won't also appeal to professional painters who are still very, very good, but this will be more like a tool for them. There might be use cases they want it, where they might want an ink, and this is going to cover that base. That's how I used contrast paints for a very long time. It was just a tool in my arsenal. It wasn't my go-to. Over the years, it has become basically the base of my painting, and I just build upon my contrast painting, whereas originally, before I got very used to using it, it was more just like a tool, and I think this is going to be a tool for pro painters. And as I mentioned, as a gamer myself, I do think this is a nice gateway for gamers to come into painting. There's plenty of gamers out there who game with miniatures who have never painted anything and might not ever consider doing it, and this is going to be more accessible again to them. It's going to be a nice range, and they might see some videos like tutorials on this channel and think, oh, is that it? Is that all you have to do and I can have it looking like that? Yes, please. So again, Army Painter just helping more people, and that's the aim of the channel, right? You know, I'm here not being particularly good at painting, showing other people that you don't have to be particularly good at painting to produce great looking paint jobs and improve your gaming experience. Now, these paints in particular are supposed to be specifically designed for this purpose. They've not been made by accident. It's not a byproduct of trying to achieve some other sort of technical paint. They've gone out with the sole purpose of designing a paint that is one coat to paint your miniatures up, and it's going to do the shading and the highlighting, specifically designed, and it's taken years, guys. So I've got high hopes for these ones, as opposed to, and I don't want to slate it too much because I use it loads, but Games Workshop, you know, they came into the launch, they banged and banged on about it. They almost shot themselves in the foot, saying, you know, it was revolutionizing the painting experience, and ultimately it's all right. Yeah, I like it. It serves my needs, but does it do everybody? Does it revolutionize anything for anybody? So I'm liking that Army Painter have spent a long time developing painting this and don't seem to be banging on that this is going to be the be-all and end-all to any other way of painting. This is just another way of painting. Now let's look at the actual product we've got in front of us. Now, as I've already said, I've only got 3 paints. I do not have the whole range, so let's bear that in mind all the way through this video. There might be a reason they sent me these specific 3. Maybe these are going to be the best 3 they've got. Maybe they're just 3 at random, because I don't know why I got sent these colours. But in the past, the Army Paint have always sent me their whole product. I don't think they're trying to hide anything from us, really. I think they've probably just sent 3 at random, and we will look at them again once we've got the full range. Now, let's have a quick goosey gander at this. The first thing I notice is they come in the dropper bottles, the standard Army Painted dropper bottles. If you've got the war paints, it's in a dropper bottle. If you've got the washers, they're in a dropper bottle. If you've got the metallics, they're in a dropper bottle. I do notice silver lids. Did they do that before? I don't think so. I think they did white, red, and black. So the new contrasty Speedpaint range is going to be with silver lids. A new thing I've noticed, I think they might have done this with some other paints, it comes with the ball bearings, the agitators inside, which does give a higher quality feel to it. It feels nice. It feels more like a premium paint when they do that, even though I think they're going to be moving forwards with just including these, which it's only a small thing. I put my own agitators in before, but it's going to speed up painting a little bit more speed paint if I don't have to keep taking them apart and putting agitators in. On the side, we can see how they advise you to apply it. So we've got vibrant color, rich shading, and simple highlights in one coat, essentially contrast. But this is the game changer. This is the difference here. Apply over a matte white color primer. It doesn't even say over Army Painter's matte white color primer, but I assume that's what they mean though. But there's no, dare I say, bullshit contrast range, speed paint range of primers specially designed for this, which I do actually, if you watch my content, I do use those contrast primers, but I say nearly every time I don't really know if they make any difference. It's just what I'm using, and I like the slightly off-white colors and the control you can have over contrast anyway, but they exist and I can use them with these paints if I want. But we'll stick to matte white for the time being just to see how well these work with the Army Painter's actual advice. And then as normal, it's a big shake well, non-toxic, water-based, top quality acrylic paints, perfected, blah, 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 blah. I do like, I've not seen this before, may produce an allergic reaction. Had never seen that on paints. Do they normally say that, or is it specifically these speed paints? I don't know, but hopefully I won't have to find out. I'll have no reaction. Anyway, that's as much as we've got with what's presented in front of us. I just want to go and get some miniatures, so let's just cut to the freaking chase. One thing I noticed is I've been given Grey Lord Grey, Cloudburst Blue, and Dark Wood Brown. And do you know what that reminded me of? A paint scheme I did a while ago, Wolfsburg Zombie Wolves. And I did these just using normal paint. And in fact, Army Painters dip, you know, that quick shade where you dip them in and you can see it's still shiny and black, and I never quite finished painting them all. But this was super speedy. They took me a couple of minutes each. Quick base coat, quick dip, and then I started painting on some details. One of the very, very first things I ever painted. I thought these colours matched this perfectly, so I went and found the extra 3 walls that you get in the Kickstarter. So I have 3 left, and we can just see how they take this contrast paint. Now guys, I need to go downstairs and give these a coat of white primer. I'll be right back. So I think I'm a bit too excited. Need to slow it down a little bit. Couldn't be bothered to grab a glove because I wanted to speed get some paint on these, but yeah, glove might have helped. Guys, these are now base coated, primed in Army Painter's matte white primer, just their standard one. So we'll see how well that works. So let's get to adding some paints to these. One thing you're going to need is a palette. So it's one of the negatives I foresee with this, that they're using their standard dropper bottles, which we'll see. I might be wrong, but it's a perceived negative to me that I have to get some out. I never know how much I want. Contrast, I tend to use quite a lot of it, so I feel like I'm going to be going back and forth. Of course, on the plus side of that, I'm not going to be able to knock over and spill this paint anywhere, so we're nice and safe. Going to get a big brush like I would with my normal contrast, but normal contrast with Games Workshop's contrast paints, and then I'm going to be applying this in, here we go, kind of one medium coat. I won't say I'm doing this particularly thick. I might step it up a notch though, and then just like I would with contrast, I'm going to work this around everywhere on the miniature that I want to be this colour. So we're about halfway through painting this, and I'm just noticing what I was saying about having to keep going back to the dropper bottle, get some more out. Who knows how much I'll need, which is actually a bad thing when you're contrast painting, when you're doing this speed paint style, because it's obviously drying while you take time off to do that, and it's going to make a little bit of inconsistency. So I'm going to have to get a little bit better at managing how much paint I get out. The other thing I'm noticing is it doesn't quite feel like contrast paint. It feels like Army Painter's washers, just slightly thicker, which I guess to some extent is how contrast is, but I don't know. I don't know how to describe it, but it's not what I was expecting. It's slightly different. Initial thoughts though is I'm loving where this is going. This is how I want this to look. Interesting colour, isn't it? That's not too far off, to be honest. It is not even dry yet. Right, let's leave that one drying and crack out the next. Try this dark wood next, the brown one. Let's try and get a bit more paint this time. Away we go. It's a very dark brown, this one. It's actually much darker initially than I thought it was going to be. We'll see how it dries. Now, one thing I am very, very keen on working out and finding out as we start playing with these contrast paints is, are they consistent? And do I also need to stop calling them contrast paints? Oh, that's going to be like Hoover and iPod and any of the other household names that we mean a vacuum cleaner. It's not a Hoover, right? It's a vacuum cleaner. Unless you own the brand Hoover. It's not an iPod. It's an MP3 player unless you own an iPod, etc., etc. I feel like I'm going to call these contrast paints. No matter what, am I ever going to call them speed paints? But yes, checking out the consistency, I'm very, very keen on finding that out. It is one of the hardest things to work with the Games Workshop contrast paints, that they are no two are the same. They are not all equal. And essentially what would be nice is if they all worked exactly the same and they were just different colours. So far, guys, this felt exactly the same as the blue. I feel like that colour's coming out exactly, other than brown, exactly the same. It's the same opacity as the blue, so brown's down as well now. Onto the grey. Well, this is way darker than I thought it was going to be. I thought this was grey. This is almost black. I wonder if this is the black. Or if, oh, hang on, it's pulling away from the highlights and it's popping out some seriously almost dry brushed fur is now coming through already. This isn't even close to drying yet. I'm just literally applying the paint. Once again, consistency wise, these three do feel the same going on. We'll see when they dry. Bear that in mind. Let's see if they all dry, but they feel the same level of opacity. They feel the same on the brush. The consistency seems really, really well balanced. As I mentioned, I do only have 3 paints, so we're going to have to wait until we get the full set to really examine that and just see if anybody's pulling some wool over my eyes and making sure they send me the 3 that work really well. But yeah, look at this. Oh. And with that, I have finished the miniatures. Now, off camera, I've been away, I've based them, I've added the details in normal paint like I would anything else. And I also added a second coat of each contrast on the main, because that's kind of how I went with the originals. They were dry brushed further down, but I didn't want to dry brush. I just wanted to leave them contrasty. In reality, I may well have dry brushed them, but we're testing the contrast, so just used 2 layers of contrast so we can see what they look like, doubling up the layers. Now, we'll have a little look at the miniature. We're not expecting this to be the best paint job ever, mainly because these miniatures suck. I had forgotten. I just thought I was really bad at painting 6 years ago, which I was, but I'm a bit better now, and it didn't really improve, and it's not the contrast fault because this was painted with quick wash, you know. Anyway, I digress. I think it's come out very, very well for the amount of time we spent. This was like 30 minutes, including doing bases. Like, this was a quick base as well, just some PVA glue and a sprinkle on top. So there's not much to these miniatures. They don't show it off particularly well, but the fur's done perfect. It's done what I would expect from contrast. It's pulled into the recesses and off of the highlights. The fur has popped out, and this is with 2 coats. I thought I might lose the detail on the second coat, but I really haven't. The fur, these maney bits have really popped out. Certainly the recesses are all shaded. There's some highlights on the raised bits. As I said, these miniatures aren't particularly good, so the highlights are really only noticeable on the top coat, which I've done 2 layers on, so it kind of popped them off, which was, just look back in the video and you can see them already forming. When I was doing the black one or the grey one, they were really popping out. So what I have noticed using these 3, and bear in mind it is a small control group, I do only have 3, and they might well be the best 3 as I've mentioned in the video, but they were super consistent, and that is one of the worst parts of using contrast paints, is the inconsistencies. They're not the same. You'll use the Dark Angels green, which is incredibly thick, incredibly dark, incredibly dense, and completely opaque, and then you'll use one of like the Magus purple, and it's very translucent, really thin. You need multiple layers to achieve anywhere near the same results. These 3 are all 1 coat on the majority and 2 coats on the main, and they all felt exactly the same. They felt the same on the brush, on the model, and they've dried equally opaque. I'm impressed. I think they've improved on that aspect. So let's also just compare it to painting quickly without the contrast paints. As I mentioned, I've had 5 years more experience on top of painting this, and it doesn't look that much better, but it was definitely quicker. And on top of quicker, it was more fun. You can see I never even finished them. That's the only one that I finished because it was boring. It was really tedious. I didn't enjoy it, although it was reasonably quick. It was not as quick as this, and it wasn't as fun. I really enjoy. I like applying contrast paint. It's very, very simple. This was dipping and waiting and shaking and waiting for dry time and loads of dry brushing and building up those layers. This has just done it. So this is how I'm going to speed paint the rest of the walls. I'm going to have to go and clean them up a bit and start again. But essentially, I think this is doing what it's supposed to do. It's a quick one-coat job. It's not going to make you the best painter in the world. It is their offering of contrast paints, and as far as I can see, it's going to be cheaper, more consistent, and works so far in this very small control group equally well. Guys, thank you all ever so much for watching. Let us know in the comments below, what would you like to see tested out? Obviously, I've only got these 3 paints, so I would love to go and paint some sort of Games Workshop character, but it's not going to be a fair test unless there are only these 3 colours. I'm just going to have to use other paints. So let us know in the comments below what you would like to see. Any ideas on how we can test these out more and more, let us know. One thing I am going to moan about, is the name any good? Speedpaint? I feel like as a new painter, you're going to struggle finding this. Imagine searching YouTube for Speedpaint. You're not going to find these. Or imagine making a tutorial, speed painting with speed paint. Like, great. Small problem, probably won't matter to a lot of people, but I was a new painter and I searched a lot of tutorials, and I can just imagine really struggling to find it. So not sure about the branding. Let me know what you think about that below. Thank you all ever so much for watching, and I will see you again soon.